So much is about to change with our weapons in regards to origin traits, which essentially will be a third trait added to our weapons, depending on where it drops from. So things like alacrity from trials, stunning recovery from nightfalls, one quiet moment from crucible, Vanguard's vindication from strikes. There's even going to be one from gambit. And this is not something that's going to go away, guys. Every single season, we're going to get 3 additional new origin traits. And this is what's really going to separate the loot you obtain from Witch Queen and beyond in comparison to our current arsenals. Now, today I actually wanted to focus on the weapon foundry traits. These are some of the most interesting ones because it affects our entire rule loot pool, which is going to consist of foundry-based weapons. Think Suros, Omolon, Hakke. Now, we've had some examples given to us already. Suros Synergy, which states that reloading grants this weapon bonus handling and reduces incoming flinch for a short time. Hakke, with breach armaments, states that this weapon deals increased damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. And Omolon, with Omolon Fluid Dynamics, allows our weapons to have increased reload speed and stability for the top half of the magazine. And Viest, with Viest Stinger, allows a chance on damage to partially refill our weapons magazine. You can imagine these traits here are going to be very, very good in these weapons. And considering most Destiny players are perfectionists, all of us are going to be going for that god roll for each of these. With that being said, today's video is actually a deep dive into the foundries themselves, as well as a couple foundries that you may not know about. Now, according to Commander Zavala, weapon foundries began from the traditions of tribal scavengers who repaired and restored the ancient technologies of the Golden Age. Now, these gunsmiths eventually became the large corporations of the city, but they became a potential threat to the city's common good. And we've seen something like that play out with faction wars. Now, the city now monitors the size of weapon foundries, and the surviving foundries continue to use new discoveries to improve our Guardian's arsenal. Some foundries have originated from the Golden Age and survived to this day with some changes. These corporations are often focused on preserving their legacy and implementing it into the modern world. Black Armory is actually a fine example of this. Today though, guys, let's break down these foundries individually and talk about their history and what to expect from them. First up, we have Suros. Now, Suros used to be called Arcus, and I think I'm pronouncing that right, back inside of Destiny 1. The name was changed so close to launch that this Arcus promotional material was still in rotation. Not really sure why the name actually changed so late. I don't think we're ever going to see a reversal of this, as Suros has pretty much taken root, and I'm not about to start calling Suros regime Arcus regime. Regardless though, Suros is a weapon foundry here in the city. They give the most stat customizations of any weapon, making each individual weapon super flexible. Now, they normally favor having good handling with lots of side options, and their overall aesthetic features this curvature sleekness with that red, white, and gray design, and sometimes that red dragon. Now, Destiny 1 Suros weapons all had Suros in the name, followed by 3 letters and 2 numbers, like the legendary rocket launcher Suros JLB-47. Now, inside of Destiny 2, Suros has picked up a new naming structure, frequently referencing musical terms, followed by a 2-digit number, like the legendary submachine gun Resonance 42. Now, this new naming structure is likely because Suros prioritizes beauty and design as well as function. And considering music is known to be elegant, or at least good music, this is very much how Suros describes their weapons. And the same goes for the aforementioned Red Dragon, which is used in their logo still. Dragons are also known to be beautiful, elegant, but also dangerous. Side note, Suros used to make weapons for New Monarchy. Now, Suros philosophy. This is my sword. Function is given. It must be given form. Designed is honed. Precision. Every curve, every line, every chamber speaks to the Suros philosophy. Suros is elegance amidst brutality. Now, considering that the Suros origin trait gives bumps to handling as well as flinch resist, you can tell already thematically how this administers that same Suros philosophy of feeling good, easy to use, while also looking good. Now, some of the most notable Suros weapons is, of course, Suros Regime, Hawksaw, 21% Delirium, Annual Skate, First In, Last Out, and many, many more. And for some of you that are wondering where Hawksaw is, yes, this is me saying we may potentially see a return of Hawksaw. Now, moving on to Hakke. I know some of you are like, yo, it's Hakke. Look, man, just roll with it. It's Hakke. That's what it is to me. Kind of sounds like hockey, but not really. It's got a little more of a ah or a ya. Hakke. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, Hakke is a weapon foundry also in the city. They feature this hexagonal design with the colors of tan and orange, often with stripes. Now, these weapons are very simple, reliable though, and balanced. They prefer function over form, with many offensive weapons having a resemblance to modern day weaponry. Now, they frequently are high impact, low rate of fire kinetic weapons that have better accuracy and recoil when they are aimed in stationary, which is normally the weapons we've seen so far, and also like the complete opposite of Viest. Now, after the Red War, Hakke actually started to dabble in target tracking rocket launchers, as well as scout rifles, submachine guns, and grenade launchers, as well as sparrows. Now, Hakke weapons are usually named after famous rulers or warriors, followed by a single letter, such as the Arminus D legendary auto rifle from Destiny 1. Arminus was a Roman officer, later a chieftain of the Germanic Cassoid tribe. Now, a Destiny 2 example is the legendary submachine gun Antiope D. And I'm only going to say it right once, but in my eyes, it's still Antiope, so deal with it. Now, there's a few Antiopes out there, but the one that makes the most sense was a Theban princess, which is part of Greek mythology. Now, naming weapons after powerful leaders and generals speaks to the philosophy of these Hakke weapons and why they're considered so powerful and durable. Now, again, following back to the correct pronunciation of Hakke, according to Bungie, they actually officially pronounced it Hakke, although Cade 6 often pronounced it Hakke during Cade Stash. We even had a female NPC in the tower sometimes pronounce it Hakke as well. I think the majority of people in the community, though, are just pronouncing it as Hakke. Regardless, Hakke's philosophy: hammers, not scalpels. Relatable design, harkening back to a lost era. Hakke is not about exciting form, but it is about exciting function. A weapon's weapon. Hakke is the instrument of the people. Now, considering that the Hakke origin trait will give an overall buff to damage against big, bulky objects like structures, vehicles, and turrets, again, this also leans into the philosophy of always on the offense and dishing out damage. Now, an interesting lore piece from Salvager Salvo's grenade launcher. This actually gave some insight into a Hakke salvage storage site. Apparently, this Hakke site scooped up a piece of a traveler's cage that Gaul created to trap the traveler's light. After, of course, the cage as well as Gaul was destroyed. Now, 3 scions of Kaido's forces then attempted to steal the cage salvage in order to, assumedly, research Gaul's light trapping technology. Now, if we have to deal with those scions stealing the light sometimes in the future, looks like we're just gonna have Hakke to blame, or at least partially. Now, some notable Hakke weapons include that of Fabian's Strategy, an exotic from Destiny 1, Antiope, Halfdan D, both of which are inside of Destiny 2. Currently, right now, we still do not have, at least to my knowledge, any Hakke exotics in Destiny 2. But we do have the new upcoming weapon, Jarrod C, which is going to be the Gambit weapon for next season. Now, moving on to Omolon. Now, Omolon is also a weapon foundry in the city. Now, Omolon is considered the pioneer of energy weapons and liquid ammo. They created the trace rifle. And something that all Omolons have in common is good handling and behavioral perks over stat modifications. Now, back inside of Destiny 1, they were actually black in color, and they actually turned to a teal color inside of Destiny 2. And they often have a lot of experimental, futuristic, ergonomic designs. Now, its naming scheme actually pulls from either an abyssal, which is normally underwater or water related, or chthonic, which is underworld entities, which is often related to in mythology. That is normally followed by the initial of the weapon's class, as well as a number. For example, we have the Cocytus SR4, which was one of the best weapons back inside of Destiny 1. Cocytus, also known as the River of Wailing, located in the underworld in Greek mythology. Or the legendary pulse rifle Nergal PR4, Nergal being the Mesopotamian god of the underworld. Now, Omolon weapons are full of liquid ammo, which is kind of a connection there behind the abyssal underwater underworld naming scheme. Now, originally, Omolon only made scout rifles, hand cannons, fusion rifles, and snipers. But after the Red War, Omolon actually extended its production to auto rifles, pulse rifles, submachine guns, and burst fire sidearms, as well as grenade launchers. Omolon also manufactures weapons for the future war cult, or used to. Now, the Omolon philosophy: experimental, bordering on irresponsible, powered by barely understood technology, a fusion of the mad scientist and product engineer of the new frontier. Hallmark is the liquid ammo displays and Omolon power cells. Omolon is the future returned. Now, considering Omolon and its origin trait is going to give increase in reload speed as well as stability for the top half of the magazine, this actually makes sense considering Omolon's weapons are full of liquid, and the more liquid liquid you have, the more stable the weapon will be, at least initially. And as you really get down to the bottom end of the magazine, that liquid will be shaking around, thus the loss there of that stability. Now, some known Omolon weapons include Talak, Susano, Hung Jury SR4, Hard Light, Last Hope, Uriel's Gift, Wave Splitter, as well as Cold Heart. Yes, Omolon has been putting in some work. Now, moving on to Viest, another weapon foundry here in the city. They specialize in all-purpose, highly advanced weapons. Now, normally they're fast-firing, quick handling, and their color scheme is lime green to dark green to just a black color scheme. And they too also have a futuristic appearance, but more aggressive, as many include these bladed projections on the trigger guard or elsewhere to show off this aggressive nature. Now, they use side-loading magazine wells, as opposed to bottom-loading wells used on most of the other weapons. Now, Viest was actually tied to Dead Orbit, would make weapons for Dead Orbit, and their overall philosophy was that Viest was designed and named to evoke venomous creatures, and each one includes an onboard artificial intelligence program with the killer instinct of its weapon's namesake. Now, some examples include the legendary bow Arsenic Bite 4B, as well as the legendary linear fusion rifle, the Crooked Fang 4FR. This philosophy was inspired by the death of a man from a snake bite by the northern city wall. Now, this lore piece was actually pulled from the Colony, which is also a Viest weapon. We outnumber you, we will find you, you are alone, and we are Colony. Have you ever watched a snake kill something? It's awful. It's so awful. I watched a man die of a terciopelo bite once, out by the northern wall. I still have nightmares about it. Anyway, that's where Viest comes from. The inspiration, I mean. Weapons with all the power of a venomous creature, plus an onboard AI with that creature's killer instincts. And now there's the Colony, a grenade launcher packed with a fully mobile, AI-controlled insectoid detonators, each one designed with a taste for blood. We've made some pretty messed up stuff. You've probably seen it, you know, but we've never made anything like the Colony before. Now, Viest's origin trait actually will give you a chance to refill the mag when damaging enemies. Again, tying into their philosophy of quick handling, fast-firing weapons, and that speed is the key with Viest, similar to that of a venomous creature that they provoke. Now, some known Viest weapons include that of the Colony, the Recluse, Valagadin, and of course, Quick Fang. Now, when we move on to these next foundries, understand that some of these we have very limited information on, but we do know, as Bungie did tease it from the TWAB, that we will be getting another foundry returning this season. Some are speculating it's one of these, which takes us to the Black Armory. The Black Armory is a late Golden Age weapon foundry founded by 3 different families: French House of Marine, Norse Rasmussen clan, and the Japanese Satu tribe. Now, Helga Rasmussen, previously of Clovis Bray, ran the business side of the Black Armory. Now, something about the Black Armory is they have the highest quality weapons, and they were actually sought after by the Kel Scourge. That's why their wares were kept secret within the city's walls. Each founder actually brought their own native heritage to the armory's design. Now, originally it was founded because the clan's matriarchs believed that the Earth was about to be invaded by some extraterrestrial enemy. And once the collapse actually started, the Black Armory's weapons proved to be no match against the Darkness Onslaught. Now, I know I'm about to kill this name right here, but Adelaide Marine, daughter of the Marine clan matriarch, was severely injured during one of these attacks. And so they actually uploaded her consciousness into an experimental exobody, thus creating Ada 1. Now, Ada 1 actually served as a mobile forge after the other forges were lost. She's also able to create and modify Black Armory weapons with her bare hands. Unfortunately, her created weapons were the downfall of the other members, as they attracted bandits, robbers, and some risen warlocks, eventually leaving only Ada 1 as the last member of the Black Armory. Now, some notable Black Armory weapons include that of Izunagi's Burden, La Monarch, Jotun, Blast Furnace, Hammerhead, as well as Kindled Orchid. Personally, if I could choose what that redacted foundry would be that's returning to us, I really do hope it's Black Armory. Now, moving on to Tex Mechanica. Ah, yes, the foundry that makes some of the most busted PvP weapons. Tex Mechanica is also a weapon foundry in the city. One of the oldest foundries, believed to have been around when the city wall was at its early age of construction. Now, the visual style replicates that of the Old West. Note the cow skull logo. Tex Mechanica's philosophy is essentially survival of the fittest. The Drifters actually says that Tex Mechanica weapons are the most similar to the Dark Age weapons out of all the currently produced weaponry. Tex Mechanica is also known to involve themselves in shady dealings and bribery in order to promote their weaponry, and we've actually seen examples of this when they actually attempted to bribe Lord Shaxx into fixing crucible matches to make their weapons look good, but Shaxx threatened them with sending a squad of Titans into their factory at the suggestion. To smooth things out, they shipped him free weapons. They also accepted a substantial bribe from the players in return for getting into the next phase of their shotgun contests. These are all, by the way, pulled from the Grimoire cards. Now, some some notable weapons from Tex Mechanica include that of Dead Man's Tale, The Last Word, Chaperone, Prospector, Huckleberry, and First Curse. Now, honestly, no bribe needed, Tex Mechanica. I use these weapons anyways. Moving on to our next weapon foundry, Cassoid. Listen, fellas, I know I'm probably saying that terribly wrong, but we actually had an emblem back in D1, which we're assuming is their insignia. Now, Cassoid is also a weapon foundry in the city. Its naming scheme usually has 2 Latin words, following by a Roman numeral, like the legendary rocket launcher Mos Epic 3. Now, you actually see the Cassoid insignia appear on some of these weapons, but other than that, not much is known about this foundry. But there is a quote from Banshee 44. Very good. Must let Cassoid know this is adequate, but don't let it get to their heads. So he at least knows who they are. Notable weapons actually include Invective from Destiny 1, Ariana's Vow, and Telesto from Destiny 2. Now, Invective and Ariana's Vow actually have the Cassoid insignia on them. Telesto's perks have the Cassoid insignia as well. Now, our next weapon foundry is Crux Lomar. This is also a foundry in the city, formerly based out of Bannerfall. Now, this was actually founded by the weaponsmith Faisal Crux and Victor Lomar. Now, the naming scheme here also uses royal or noble titles, followed by a 2-letter alpha code and a number. Not impressed? This was the foundry that created Galahorn, Truth, as well as Dragon's Breath. All rocket launchers, all created by Crux Lomar. Not sure if they made anything else other than a few other rares. Now, our next weapon foundry is actually Daito, or Daito. This weapon foundry was originally established during the Golden Age. Now, the naming scheme is usually a city, followed by a 2-letter designation code. Now, all Daito weapons are blues and below, except for the Jade Rabbit and Two-Tailed Fox. Several Daito products bear the symbol of the Jade Rabbit. Now, the lore on Jade Rabbit mentions that Daito are the creators of an item known as the Lunal, but at least to our knowledge, it's currently unknown what Lunal even is. Daito also manufactures armor, such as the Moonfang X7 set and the Gemini Jester. Now, Daito and Clovis Bray could actually be connected in some way, as the Gemini Jester exotic has both the Jade Rabbit and Clovis Bray symbols on them. And there's even a hidden room in the tower where the Daito logo can be seen next to the journal of Anna Brace. Now, another foundry that some of us don't even know about is actually MIDA. Yeah, MIDA, like MIDA Multitool. Now, listen to this. MIDA, an acronym with an unknown meaning, was a revolutionary government that came to power on Mars in an assumed alternate timeline, and the creator of the weapons MIDA Multitool and MIDA Minitool. Now, MIDA was a rebel group that seized control of Mars, and during its brief reign, MIDA was responsible for the deaths of 10% of the Martian population. The government eventually fell, and its surviving loyalists were forced to go on the run from threats such as battleroids. Now, around the date of November 17, 2472, in an alternate timeline, 2 survivors carrying the MIDA weapons with them learned the location of a salvaged construct that they hoped would allow them to flee somewhere safe and thus preserve MIDA's ideals. One survivor, Strauss, fled the planet, but the other traveled deep beneath the Martian surface, guided by the Minitool, in response to the request to go somewhere better. There, they apparently found a temporal anomaly that allowed at least the weapons to pass through. The weapons actually entered the Guardians timeline after this point and were discovered by Commander Zavala. And the details of MIDA were extracted from their log caches by Lord Shaxx using their electronic warfare functions. Now, some other references to MIDA is in reference to Bungie's Marathon series, specifically the Rose level where the history of MIDA was discussed. The acronym? Well, Shaxx actually attempted to create the backronym Mars is damnably arid. Well, hell, I can tell you that. Other than that, guys, the only other foundry we have come across is that of Nadir, which we recently talked about in this video right here. But here recently, Bungie actually released an emblem code with the word Nadir in the name. And if you remember Nemesis Star from back inside of Destiny 1, yes, Nadir was the creator of that weapon. If you're interested to know more about Nadir, feel free to check out that video though, guys, as we go into a little more detail about that foundry. With that being said, I think this kind of gives you some idea of where our weapons even come from, what their identities are, why their origin traits are what they are, and what to expect when using each one of these. Let me know in the comments below what you think, fellas. Which one of these foundries are you the most excited for? Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.